Hey, this is Aaron Ponick, and we're here in the showroom at Devco Studios. And today we're going to teach you how to make custom license plates on your laser engraver. I'm sure as everybody's driven around, we've probably seen a sports team logoed license plate similar to this. And so we're going to use mirrored acrylic to teach you how to make license plates such as this. Now, what I did was I purchased pre-cut license plates, and you can purchase the same type of thing from either sites like Etsy or Amazon. They're nice because you don't have to worry about cutting them, but they also tend to be a little bit more expensive. If you're trying to save a little bit of money, you can get sheets, typically in 4x4 or 4x8 sizes, but you can also get them as small as I think 24x36 that you can cut down, and it saves you a little bit of money. You do have to create your own template for the holes and the outside of the license plate. But if you want to save some time, feel free to reach out to me and I'll send you the CAD file of the one that I've already done like that. But the first thing we're going to look at, or actually let's talk about supplies first. So as I've talked about, you need acrylic. So what you typically use is an 1/8 inch thick acrylic. And so again, you can get the pre-cut sheets or the pre-cut plates or get the sheets. You'll also need glue, and you'll also need a laser engraver and a graphic design software of some kind. But first we're going to look at the design portion of it. So I have some footage of that, and we'll take a look at that now.
Okay, so what we're moving into now is coming up with our design or our text or whatever it is that we want to put on our custom license plate. As for this design software, I use CorelDRAW. Schools often have site licenses for Adobe products, so they will have access to programs like Adobe Illustrator, or maybe they have access to AutoCAD or other Autodesk programs for coming up with their designs. But so what I'm doing here may not be exact. It may not be the exact workflow or process in which you use to manipulate or adjust your artwork so that it works with a laser engraver. But I think a lot of the functionality will be there in your native programs that you can do what you need to do. So I'm going to start off by creating a new document. Typically in CorelDRAW, whenever I open up a new document, it wants to have it set up to a letter size page. But you can see if we look at my width and my height, this is already set up to my template size for my license plate. So at this point I'll just hit OK, and you can see I have a roughly license plate sized document to work with. So this is great because that way, as I import artwork or add text, I can move it around and get a good visual representation of what it's going to look like on the license plate. So at this point I'm going to import some artwork. And since we are doing this for the Pittsburgh State Four-State Technology Conference, I am going to do the Pittsburgh State Pitt logo. It came in rather large, so I'm going to drop down in size, and in CorelDRAW, if I hit the letter P on my keyboard, it will automatically center it into my document for me. So at this point, what we have is a raster image. And what we need it to be, at least in order for the epilogue laser engravers, which I'm using on this project, in order for the epilogue laser engravers to recognize as a line to cut, we need to turn this image into vector lines. At least in CorelDRAW, as I mentioned, any type of program you use will probably have a similar functionality. How you get there, what it is called, I can't say for certain, but I'm certain you can accomplish it on programs like Illustrator or other graphic design programs. So anyway, I'm going to select my artwork and then come up here to bitmaps, and I'm going to convert this to a bitmap. In this case, I'm doing the outline trace line art because that seems to work pretty good for stuff like this. Once it's done, I will hit OK. And at this point it doesn't look like anything has changed. That is because it has placed my new bitmapped image over the top of the original image, which I will at this point delete and then move my new image back to center where I want it. Now, as you can see, this particular image has a border on it, a yellow border. I'm going to eliminate that in the next process. If you're doing a three color or multicolor, more than two color license plate, you may want to keep the lines that will be left behind by the border, but in my particular case, I'm going to get rid of those. So in order to do that, the next thing I'm going to do is create an outline. And so to do that in CorelDRAW, I have this object properties window in which I can give it an outline here, or I can come up here in my menu at the top and do it there as well. For this case, I'm going to do it over here just to give you guys a better visual of what I'm doing. In this case, you can see I have all kinds of different line width options. In order for the epilogue engraver to recognize a particular line as a vector line using CorelDRAW, I need to have it designated as a hairline. Now in your program that you use, maybe it's done in actual dimensional figures, so like, half an inch, quarter of an inch, and so on. In order for, again, the epilogue product to recognize that your image is a vector line, it needs to be 0.0001 inches or smaller, or 1/1000th of an inch or smaller, in order for the epilogue to recognize it as a vector line. And so I've created an outline, as you can see. I'm going to, I guess just for my visual aid, get rid of the color in here. So I'm going to come over here back to my object properties window and choose no fill underneath the fill section. So this will turn everything to, if I select the image, this will turn everything just to simple black and white. So I mentioned how this has the border, which you guys may want on future projects, but on this particular one I do not. So in order to get rid of that, I need to do something. So right now everything is grouped together. So if I try to get rid of this line by selecting and deleting, it will eliminate the entire image, which I do not want. So in order to make all of these features singular and editable, I need to select this and then go up to my object menu at the top and choose group, and then finally ungroup objects, which you can see you can also do the keyboard shortcut of Control and U. So now all the features that aren't, I guess, touching another feature should be able to be edited on their own. So you may have to zoom in a little bit, but I'm going to select this line, maybe. Now, let's back out of that, deselect that. I'm going to select this line, and now, once it is selected, hopefully if I hit delete, it will delete just my outline. Because this outline was separate from the previous one, I have to delete that on its own, and then again with the dot on the I and then the border on the P. So now at this point I've done everything that I need to do in order to cut out a pit logo out of acrylic or whatever material you're using, but in this particular project, working with license plates, we're working with 1/8 inch acrylic. So at this point we would just need to go to File and Print, or whatever process you may need to do in order to send a job to the laser engraver that you have access to, and then send it to the laser engraver and we'll cut it out from there.
Alright, we're back in the Depco showroom. So far we've worked on our artwork, figured out what we want to do. Now it's time to bring it to our processing software for our laser engraver. So this is a process that I'm going to skip because depending on what type of laser engraver you're using, they may differ. So what I use with the epilogue engraver like we have here won't be exact to perhaps what you have, but they'll all process the job depending on the type of material you're working with and the type of thickness. So going back to what we're working with, we have two pre-cut 1/8 inch thick pieces of mirrored acrylic. Again, we're doing a two-colored job, and so what I'll do is I'll put one in and cut the image out of one, and then I'll put the other in and cut the image out of the other, and then I'll put the pieces together like a puzzle and then glue it together. Okay, so now that we've cut our pieces, the next step would be to assemble and glue our pieces together to create the license plate. You're going to need a backing piece to glue your front license plate face to, and you're going to need adhesive. The adhesive I found that works best is this E6000 glue, which you can pick up at Home Depot or probably most hardware stores. As far as the gluing process, you can do that in a couple of different ways. One, if you don't have transfer paper like I do here, which comes in handy because I can basically put my front piece together like a puzzle and then cover it with transfer tape, keeping it all bound together, and then transferring it and gluing it over to the backing piece. Or you can simply apply some of the glue and spread it out evenly to the backing piece, and then put your front piece, the border piece on, and get it lined up, and then set it and glue it, and then you can come back and put glue in between the letters, or if you have the glue spread evenly, you can probably come back while it's still wet and put insert the other pieces. And then what I would recommend to keep everything held still and keep everything flat and in place is to take a weight of some kind, hopefully something that you can cover up the entire surface area so that it's applying weight evenly. So, if you have a board and then like a small weight that you can put on top of it that just kind of, the board distributes the weight across the entire thing, that would be great. So, okay, so now we will put our letters into our license plate to assemble it. Being upside down, this one wants to give me a battle. Okay, so once we have it where we want it, for now I'm going to move this other plate away to make room for myself to operate. We're going to take our transfer tape and pull out a good stretch of it to cover the entire license plate. Good grief. And then I recommend taking a squeegee and applying pressure across the face of the license plate just to make sure that you have good adhesion and no pieces come apart whenever you go to transfer it for the gluing process. And then you can take an X-Acto knife, any type of knife or scissors, and just cut off what you need. So what I also like to do, just to make this a little easier to work with, is to cut all of the excess transfer tape away. So whenever I'm lining it up with the bottom piece, it's just easier to see where the edges are, and I can make sure everything's staying straight. So I'll just flip this over, or you don't even have to flip it over, and then take, again, your knife or even a pair of scissors, whatever's easiest, and just run along the edge of the plate. And then remove your excess. So now, at this point, we can start applying our glue. So one thing I prefer to do, because whenever you assemble this, you're going to have little crevices. So if you apply glue to the back of this and then put it face down, then you're going to have possibly glue seep through the crevices of the letters. Or if you apply glue to this and then put it down on top of it like that, you can have the glue perhaps get through the crevices there. So I would either apply glue to the back of here, or and then put this face up, or apply glue to the face of this and then put this on top of it and then apply your weight. So a couple of things I'd like to note. Obviously you can see I have a piece of cardboard down. This was to protect from the cutting process, and also will kind of protect your working surface from glue. And also you might see that there is what looks to be like a paper sack colored material. Basically this is a protective sticker that you will often find on acrylic, so I just need to remove this. Alright, something else you may do is clean your surfaces, so that way you don't have any debris or anything that might complicate or compromise the bonding of your two materials. Make sure you get it good and dry. Okay, so now what we're going to do is apply the glue. So what I like to do is first kind of draw out my border around any openings or edges, and then fill in the rest, and then spread it out. So right now I'm spreading out the glue just so I get a nice, or at least as good as I can, a consistent coating. Now you don't have to do this, but what I found is the globs, if you don't spread it out somewhat, may seep through the crevices that I talked about if you don't orient the face of it right as you're gluing. Now, I don't know if you want to use a brush like I'm using, because once you use it, it pretty much destroys the brush, but you could obviously do this with any number of types of materials, you know, like some sort of cloth or probably even a paper towel. So at this point, we're going to take our face plate and do our best to get everything lined up. So as you apply the face plate, start pushing it down and applying pressure as evenly as possible, just kind of working out any kind of globs that may push it out of position, because as you push down you will feel around and notice that it kind of jumps over, and so just keep correcting it until you feel like, as you apply pressure, and keep checking that it stops doing any kind of shifting. Okay. So once you get it to a point where you feel like you're done with any kind of shifting, which mine still seems to be doing, it was doing good for a while. But once you get to a point where it seems pretty lined up, one thing that you could do is to use the laser engraver and make a fixture. So you could take like a half-inch thick piece of wood, perhaps, or some type of material, and cut a hole so that way everything fits in there and doesn't shift. That's something that I did not do but may do in the future. So, okay, that feels pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my weight and my flat surface that covers the entire plate and apply that and let it set up. This particular glue, they recommend to let it set for 24 hours. Okay, so once the position feels pretty straight after applying the faceplate to the backing piece, you can go ahead and apply your piece that's going to distribute the weight of whatever weight you choose to use across the entire surface. So in this case, I have a styrofoam piece that we use here at work, and I'm going to set it on there like that, and then apply our weight, and I will leave it alone for the next 24 hours, let the glue set up, and then come back and check it. Alright, so welcome back. 24 hours have passed. The glue should be set up. We're going to take off our weight and have a look. I will let you in on that I've already taken it off and had a look on my own and removed the transfer paper that was on it, but we're going to pretend that this is the first unveiling and take a look here. So this is how it turned out. Pretty good if you ask me. You know, in license plates, similar to this, you just typically have a vector cut piece that is glued together with a border, just like it looks now, but you can do some further customization by adding an etched surface. So not only can you cut the acrylic, you can also etch the surface, which gives it like a frosted look. So we're actually going to try that on here. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but it could be really cool or it could be a complete bomb, but we're going to give it a shot.
So something else that we can do to further customize our license plate is to bring in a raster image. So as opposed to cutting out the acrylic, what this will do, this will etch the surface of the acrylic plate. So this can add, for those of you familiar with etching or engraving on acrylic pieces, this creates like a frosted image or text. So we're going to give this a shot. I don't know how it's going to look, but it might turn out really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the Pittsburgh State guest face logo, and whenever it loads it's going to come in rather large, so I'm going to size that down. Since our license plate is about 6 inches tall, I'm going to change the guest face to a height of 5 inches and then hit P to center it up. So like with the Pitt script logo, I'm going to change this to a bitmap. And then I'll quickly move the new one out of the way, delete the old one, and move the new one back into place. So we could leave it as is, but what's going to happen, since we have coloration on the red side of the face and yellow side of the face, the laser engraver is still going to pick up yellow as, I guess, an image to engrave. So while it won't be as deep as the red, it will engrave, and so it'll make the separation of the face difficult to see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to our object menu and ungroup the entities that make up the image. So now I should be able to select you know, just the red stuff, and because the laser engraver seems to work with coloration better if it's black and white or grayscale, I'm going to change the guest face to a gray and then select the other entities that were red. Change those as well. And then I will select the part of the face that's yellow and change that to no fill, and then zoom in a little bit to select the other parts of the face that were white and change those as well. So now, in theory, what will happen is it will cut out the text and then engrave the guest face over the top of it, leaving like a ghost image that you may not see from a distance as your vehicle's approaching, but as you get closer you'll see it, and maybe it'll be a cool little detail. If it helps for visualizing it on the screen, we can also select our Pitt logo and come up to Object and go to Order and bring it to the front of the page, so that way we can see the text a little bit better, get a better idea of how it's going to look as far as positioning and things like that.
All right, so we're back. We've added our ghost face, Gus face. Um, it turned out better than I thought it would. It actually looks pretty good. I don't know how it looks on the camera, but having it set up and walking away from a distance, it looks really neat. It adds a nice little feature that you don't typically see on plates like this. So overall, I think it was a success. So that's it for you guys. Hopefully you take something away from this that's helpful for your classroom use. You think about kids, especially high school kids, they love personalizing their cars, doing things. And so this is a neat way, neat project for your classroom to really get kids engaged and do some cool things. Thanks a lot.